We welcome you all to today's panel discussion on the topic Future of Waterproofing Systems, Polyurethane and Polyurea. Today's panel discussion is jointly organized by Waterproofers Association of India and Revered Media. We welcome our esteemed panelists for the day. I would like to start this panel discussion by introducing Mr. Sandeep Chaudhary, who is the founder director of S&P Technologies Private Limited and Vice President of Indian Importers, Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and President of Waterproofers Association of India. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Trinisha. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandeep Chaudhary. I'm founder and managing director of Waterproofers of S&P Technologies Private Limited and founder of Waterproofers Association of India, the only registered association for waterproofers by the waterproofers in India. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We had formed Waterproofers Association of India and started forming it actually in 2017. And it got registered in 2018. As of now, we are almost 100 members pan-India, including one in Nepal. The idea of having the association was to bring together all the members, all the waterproofers under one umbrella and work for their benefit. Now, benefits can be different for different people, but here the idea was to have training sessions, regular upskilling, and technology transfer from manufacturers. So that's what we had started this for. We'll be having first Waterproofer of the Year Award 2021 in November at Kufri near Shimla, which will be our annual conference where we'll be awarding award on to the best waterproofer, which we select out of case studies submitted by Waterproofers All India. They can be members of the association, or even if they are not members, at least they're waterproofers, they can pitch for that award. So waterproofers listening to this, please submit your case studies, at least prepare them and plan to submit it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Presenting to you all, Waterproofers Association of India.
Introducing Waterproofers Association of India. We are a non-profit organization dedicated to enhancing the capabilities of those who have dedicated themselves in protecting the buildings from water seepages and rehabilitation the buildings damaged due to poor construction practices by providing them a unified voice in the construction industry. Our mission is to make a credible national organization made up of the country's leading waterproofing, concrete repair, and rehabilitation, allied contractors, manufacturers, importers, consultants, and others which shall elevate the industry to a level of recognition and respect for one and all. This in turn shall facilitate focused growth of our industry in the years ahead. Join the global WAI community. Shape the future of construction industry. Connect with more than 20,000 building professionals. Waterproofers Association of India. Enhancing the capabilities of those who protect building. Introducing Revered Media, a 360 degrees logistics solutions of business events. Who we are and what we do. Revered Media is an independent, full-service, professional logistics solutions company for business events. We specialize in corporate events with end-to-end event project management. Our commitment is to see each event through from the start to finish, while keeping the goals, vision, budget, and our clients' needs in mind at all times. We manage your events from conceptualization to execution, saving you the long hours, late nights, and endless emails so that you can focus on what's essential to you. We represent leading international exhibition organizers for promotion of their shows in India as well. Our unique selling proposition are: we have a focused and contemporary approach, wide contacts, rich experience in conceiving and managing high-profile events, working within deadlines and budget with maximum mileage and strong marketing instincts. We specialize in various types of events such as webinars, seminars, conferences, exhibitions, social media marketing, EDMs and e-newsletters, workshops, promotional advertisement and designing, public relations, product launch, award ceremonies, road shows, and many more. Our vision includes growth, innovation, affordability, and quality services. Contact us and join hands with Revered Media.
Now I would request Engineer Kunjan Popat, Secretary at Waterproofers Association of India, to introduce our panelists for the day. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to announce that we have got 4 panelists today. The first one I would like to introduce is Engineer Mr. Sunny Surlekar. He's a civil engineer from VJTI and has done his master's in civil from University of Michigan, USA. He currently heads the Technical Services and R&D division of SS Bilchem Private Limited. He's also the director of the Institute of International Talent Development, a training organization specializing in construction-related training. He has worked for over 12 years internationally in the field of building chemicals across USA, Europe, Brazil, Middle East, and India. He's a fellow of Association of Consulting Civil Engineers and an active member of ACI, Institute of Engineers India, and other associations. He is also a member of ICI Committee for Handbooks on Admixtures and Waterproofing. Second panelist we have got is Engineer Bhavin Kotari. He is heading the waterproofing and sealant division of the company called Tramco CPG India Private Limited. His qualification is a BE in civil engineering, and he has done his executive education in INSEAD experience. Mr. Bhavin has around 2 decades of professional experience in construction and construction chemical industry. He has been resident and worked in India and internationally across Asia Pacific. He has got exposure in construction practice and issues in Australia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Qatar, and India, whatnot. He has been previously employed with Sika and Fosroc International. He currently heads the commercial and technical functions of waterproofing and sealants division with Tramco and has got a very good experience with polyurethane and polyurea. Our next panelist is Mr. J. Srinivas Prasad, or JSP, how we know him as. He is an MTech and IIMK graduate. He has construction chemical experience of 28 years. Joined in 93 in Fosroc as a product manager in waterproofing and left as a general manager in 2008. Worked in a couple of years as a VP director in Dr. Fixit. Founder of La Greens in India in 2014 with US as JV partners. He is passionate for technology and commitment to construction chemicals, and vision is to build a technical brand and a true professional company, and has got some great expansion plans. He has many hobbies, the list which I cannot put it up over here. And he and Sunny are associate members of our association. The final panelist is our own association member, principal member, Vishal Kumar Rastogi. He's a founder and MD of Professional Technical Services Private Limited. He is in waterproofing business since 2009. And from 2014, he has been working with polyurea, PUF, and polyurethane coatings, which is a subject today. Till date, he has completed more than 1.5 lakh square meters of polyurea coating. His interests including learning about new products and technologies in polyurea linings. His goal is to open a training institute for polyurea material application. Vishal, contact me afterwards. Finally, we have got one more surprise for you all. We have got a very good friend of mine, Mr. Musabar, who has been a chemist and an MB technology in management also. He has started his career in CSIR, SERC, and worked in lab and technical support in Fosrock, Bangalore for about 4 years. Currently, he is working in Saudi and responsible for R&D and technical head of construction chemicals, fireproofing products, joint sealants, adhesives, and waterproofing products. In areas of waterproofing, he has developed and handled a wide range of products, which includes polyurethane, polyurea, and hybrids of polyurethane with acrylic and silicone and whatnot. He's also part of publishing in papers like Gulf Construction and similar to CE and CR in India. He's traveled extensively to US and many European countries and associated with himself to technical associations, leading chemical companies in new product developments. Friends, he's not on as a panelist, but he has been invited by us to give a final review on the discussions done today. I request Sandeep ji to start the panel discussion.
So the first question, what I would like to ask all the panelists, and this is open to the members also, the people who are attending, everyone, that what's the product category that finds most use in wet areas, as well as roof waterproofing applications. And for example, 2K cementitious flexible coatings, 1K polyurethane ready to use, 2K polyurethane acrylic, and bitumen, all these. So which one do you think is which is mostly in use in wet areas? So I think Vishal is among us and he's one of the applicators. So Vishal, what do you think? Which of these products is the most used as of now?
Good morning to everyone. And as far as my knowledge, I think
one minute, Vishal. Yeah. I would like to inform all the participants, whatever question and answers they want to give, can you please put it up on question and answer so we can take your questions after the sessions are over?
Yes.
Thank you, Vishal. Take over.
So, as far as my knowledge and my experience, moreover, people are still using cementitious technologies right now. Cementitious technology, cementitious materials are very much in use till date. And because it is economical, it is easy to apply, and it doesn't need any, you can say, certain skilled manpower, because people used to just buy it from the market and just apply it on the surface. So as you all know, so this is I think cementitious products are widely used these days.
Mr. Prasad, being a manufacturer and active especially in South India, what about your customers? What do they prefer most among these products?
Good morning all. As Vishal said, most of the people are still obsessed with polymer modified cementitious coating, I would say, in many cases, except the high engineering structures where they are going for two-component polymer modified acrylic coatings. And recently, with high spend on the buildings or the residential villas, etc., people are looking at even going for high-end two-component coatings, which can give some elastomeric range of 150, 175%. That's what I've seen. For example, I had come across a project a week back in a small, I would say, district like Rajbandri, which is not even near to the capital of Andhra Pradesh. A 300, 400 storage building. He is trying to go for all the coatings in toilets, etc., with 150% elongation. That's a good sign. So slowly there is a thinking going on to go upgrade the thing, but as in abroad, they may not go for high-end systems because the rates are a concern to applicators. So they'll not be able to go for high-end systems here. Still, it's polymer modified acrylic.
Sunny, can I again ask you the same? Like,
yes,
based
yes.
on your experience.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Actually, my experience more or less echoes what Vishalji and Mr. Prasad just said. And part of it actually goes down to understanding why it is so. Like if we actually think about it like a bathroom structure, it doesn't have really much, it's not undergoing much of movements, or it is not undergoing a lot of thermal expansion contraction. So oftentimes your more sophisticated products are not actually needed. So so basically people have been doing it with crystalline system because they are the cheapest. Then there is also, as Prasad sir said, a basic two-component one with with a little bit of flexibility, and then depending on budget, that can be up to the higher level. But other part, I think what happens in bathroom waterproofing is a lot of the other steps are missed. I mean, the technologies today are pretty good. I mean, there are steps in terms of, for example, it's not only the coating that you do and you just kind of mix something, apply something, and be done with it. A lot of problems that we normally see come up with surface preparation. So it is not really the products that are going wrong, because I've seen cases where PU also have been used. And then people are saying, oh, that the PU doesn't work, or this material doesn't work, or a crystalline doesn't work. But that is not true, because something went wrong in the system. Like waterproofing is something, I say it follows Murphy's law. So if there is even one chance for something to go wrong, it will. So as far as the experience goes, yes, people are using more of the 2K system, but I'm also seeing an advent of the polyurethane systems, and I'll come into it. But as of the moment, I don't think it is actually necessary. See, the more sophisticated the product, the more the problem. So it is much better to work with simpler systems that people are used to, especially for bathroom waterproofing, I would say.
Thank you, Sunny. And Bhaven, what are your views on this?
Yeah, thank you, Waterproofing Associations, and good morning to the authorities here and my fellow panelists. As a Tremco, we take honor in being part of this kind of forum. Specifics to the question in discussion, I think some very elaborate responses have been given. What observations I have had is we are a very large nation as a country, which is split into urban areas and non-urban areas. Urban areas, you have very large structures, tall structures going in, and then they try to avoid in urban areas in the toilet and some of these other applications, construction methods, use of brick masonry or block masonry. So they go with partition boards and those kind of elements to speed up the construction and accommodate the space requirements. So in that case, some of these times polyurethane is seen to be a very effective way to waterproof. We have been as Tremco part of some of these projects in the last few years, and we saw, especially new construction-wise, polyurethane working very well. At the moment you step to the situation where you're talking about non-urban areas where economics is the driving factor, availability is the driving factor. So what gets available gets done, and based on the knowledge and the skill in that location. So there is polymer-based, cement polymer-based two-component and onwards, which is a highly preferred way to do it. But again, waterproofing of a wet area, which the word says wet means continuous under immersion or indirect immersion, detailing and how you approach the whole scheme is the most vital point in that. So that's for it. Then when you talk about roof, I mean, I think there was question was also on the roof, what kind of systems gets used, and roof are a very different structural element to a wet area, which is possibly somewhat in the building, and then roof, which is on the top of the structure. And roof is subject to different stresses, environmental stresses because of the variations in temperature and climatic conditions. And again, there are different forms of roofs, cast in situ, precast, these days composite structures, and so on. And they bring different forth of challenges. So the kind of systems and materials that are getting used and the knowledge level that is getting built in the country is I think, in a good direction. Polyurethanes and polyureas are more preferred on the roof as of now today. Yeah.
So now, as you have just said, polyurethane and polyureas. So I have a question here that how much are we in need of polyurethane and polyurea technology as application specialists for the Indian market? And this question is to Vishal, that how much are we in need of polyurethane and polyurea technology?
See, Sandeep, yeah, Sandeep ji, actually it depends. Actually, what kind of the application you are going to basically use for this for the product. So अगर आप इसके अंदर से ये देखते हैं कि बेसिक अगर आपका एप्लीकेशन ओल्ड रूफ को वाटरप्रूफ करने का है, hello, am I audible? Yeah. So अगर आप ये देखते हैं कि ओल्ड रूफ को अगर आपको वाटरप्रूफ करने का है और उसके ऊपर आपको कोई प्रोटेक्शन नहीं देना है, then I think polyurea is the best bet, because it is very high in you can say abrasion resistance. It has a very high good shore hardness and very high this tensile strength. So it can withstand the harsh conditions of foot traffic along with other traffic also. But when you talk about below grade, or you can say sandwich systems, I will not prefer polyurea as a waterproofing system, because there are very pros and cons of this system. Whereas polyurethane is a polyurethane or acrylic, you can say is a good system where you have to choose between the tensile strength, between the abrasion resistance, between the bonding ability, aging factor of the particular product. So you have to understand, you have to analyze what kind of product you are using, and you have to check this you can say this the performance of the product, whether this product will perform for 10 years. So any manufacturers who is guaranteeing this for 10 years must have some backed data for that product. So you must have to check whether this product is going to last 10 years or 15 years or 20 years.
Bhavan, as among us, Tremco is the only manufacturer of polyurea as of now here. So what are your comments on this?
As Tremco, we are the original formulators. We formulate these materials ourselves, and then we manufacture within our factories, and then we market it. That's the way Tremco globally is working. In India, we do a good amount of it. So a high amount of our materials are made in India. So we do pure polyurea in India. We do hybrid polyureas in India. We do pure polyurethane in India. So that's where Tremco is how it is placed. When it comes to applications, as Rastavu sir was trying to highlight us now, the selection gets driven by a host of parameters on what kind of application suits what kind of materials. What we have seen, as I said in my earlier comment, is that the roofs, predominantly given the nature, the subject to stresses or above ground structures, the high preference is given to polyurethanes and polyurea based technology. Again, we have to respect the fact that between polyurea, hybrid polyurethane, and pure polyurethanes, there is a difference in the performance parameters, how they are placed, the application conditions to which they suit, and so on. So we have seen podiums getting done with polyurea-based systems, hybrid polyureas. We have seen roofs getting done with now this is for the above ground. Moment you step in the below ground structures, And if we take, say, a non-building as a structure, say infrastructure for that matter, like underground stations or any other kind of a cut and cover structure getting commissioned, though there may not be a 3-level foundation, basically 1.5 to 2 level deep. But there also there's a higher design criteria because they are designed with a horizon of 100 years or 80 years kind of a design life. And there the owners and the people are looking for systems which are having more resilience to these aspects, especially when it comes to chemicals and salts and chlorides and all, which will be quite active in the ground. And especially retaining wall application, we have seen a lot of polyurias and polyurethanes having high acceptance there.
Thank you. Thank you. Sunny, as even I have used your polyurethane single component coatings. What do you have to say about polyurethane coatings? The importance of polyurethane coatings, and is the market ready for these kind of products? Like, is there actually any need for polyurethane coatings for waterproofers to promote? Because it is, end of the day, it is the waterproofing applicators who go out in the market and promote these products. Normally, none of the manufacturers, they go to architects or the contractors and promote these products. So what kind of place we are in right now to see the importance of using polyurethane?
Yeah, see, that actually goes quite a bit to, as Vishalji said, that goes quite a bit to see where it is being applied. For example, things like areas. Now, a lot of people would come up and say, oh, I've got a terrace area of, say, about 200 square meters and I want to do polyurea. So it just doesn't make sense, because just to get the equipment out there for that kind of a small job, get it done, it's a lot of hassle. So it can be done with much simpler systems like acrylics or, acrylics or 2K cementitious systems with a screed. So you get the trafficability and you get this thing. If you're looking at very, very large roofs where you really want to get it done quick, means say maybe you have got a roof area of somewhere around 5,000, 10,000 square meters, then maybe an application like polyurea makes a lot of sense. Second is the expansion contraction, things like that. Like what are the kind of stresses it's going to come under? So, for example, if it's a larger roof, the movements are larger. It's simple, just by virtue of the size of it, your movements are going to be larger. So you need something with a lot more toughness. So even even in that case, some of your basic polyurethanes would do. So a lot of these things go into the selection, like the weathering, whether it's going to be covered, whether there is slopes for it, and there are a lot of different aspects in the selection. But if you're talking of a certain, if you say things like smaller homes, building terraces, things like that. So most often they don't need technology that goes up, to that extent. So you can do it with simpler materials. So that is where I think the waterproofers have to come together in deciding this kind of system selection. Like we talked about the bathroom. So what is right for what? So for example, is a polyurethane right in a bathroom? Maybe not. So it all goes on the system selection based on what you're coming up with. But yes, as far as the larger roofs go, or more and more complicated types of constructions, there we can slowly start going from, say, a basic polyurethane to a hybrid polyurethane to then to polyureas and so on, depending on what the application goes. But Sandeepji, if I may just add one more point, like we are talking about polyurethanes primarily as a coating. But also in waterproofing, polyurethanes find a lot of application as something else, as water stoppers, as injection systems. So I think that is also somewhere where we have to see like how these kind of things get integrated much more into mainstream usage, as opposed to simply depending on a coating or something like that. There's often these small things like grouting, closing up the cracks. So these are the kind of things that also polyurethanes do very, very well. And I think we can also slowly take the discussion into that or take part of the discussion into that direction as well.
Thank you. So while this was not actually my one of the questions which I had written, which I had planned to ask, but while talking to you and Bhavan and listening to Vishal, I had some time back attended a sales meeting of a company, very well-known company who is into paints, and they had come up with a roller applied single component polyurea coating packed in a 4 kg pack. So I would like to, as an applicator, myself as an applicator, I would like to ask this question to Vishal and to Bhavan, that are these single component roller applied polyurea coatings effective? Are they really polyurea, or are there some kind of modified products? Vishal.
So yes, Sandeep ji, actually I have also used 1K polyurea system from a company. So this system is basically modified system, and this is not meant for waterproofing purpose. It is meant for as a protective coating. I have used it as a protective coating, clear coating on goods, on the surface of stones, on surface of tiles, and it gives a very thin coating like in microns. So I will not say it is a waterproofing coating. It is basically a protective coating. So I have used, yes, it's a single component polyurea is there in the market. Some of the companies are manufacturing it and promoting it as not as a waterproofing coating, but as a protective coating.
Okay. So Bhavan, being a manufacturing company, what is your take on this? Like, can we use these as a waterproofing systems or what?
There is an international body called Polyurea Development Authority, aptly called PDA, and that's actually said to be the mascot who actually promotes polyurea worldwide, whether it is North America, US, and they have given a technical definition to polyureas, what polyurea is, which is a combination of a part A and a part B, and those are chemicals. I'll not get into that. So that's the basic definition. Now, that definition, if you're saying that has changed with the innovations in the polymer science available, where without a mixing of a part A and a part B, a polyurea coating gets created, that's something to be looked upon as an industry. But as a manufacturer and as a company who's been there over 90 plus years worldwide now, we take our subject very seriously. So when we launched ourselves in India in 2019, when I joined in, we took a call that we'll only bring in proven materials into the market, which has a 15-20 years track record within our group. No? We don't want to, there are a lot of innovations within our company. There's huge R&D activities going on. So why we are doing that is we want to give access to the Indian contractors, specialist applicators, Indian end users, access to right technology, which helps them establish and take these things as a next step forward to addressing those issues, which possibly with some of the cement polymer chemistries, they are not able to address. And that is very vital while selecting. So I think the part of your question is how to evaluate those coatings and what could be the right ways, because technical data sheets can have something sometimes which can be lot of information can be there. So we have to be very mindful of having the right evaluation parameter before we actually agree to use a certain technology. And then the best way to do it is to have track record. You know, whether it is India or internationally, has this material been used? Is it independently accredited? And so many other factors around it. So as I said, there are a lot of innovations happening. I will give you a perspective. We do have moisture triggered polyurethane as Tremco. Now what it does is it is tolerant to moisture. So what it happens is you can do it on a wet area, in an old wet area, removing it without the worrying of dampness going to give blistering to your polyurethane coating, or many other applications in coastal cities, which is a typical challenge with polyurethane. Now, these kind of innovations do happen in the industry, which are game-changing innovations, but these are not something which is new to the industry. It's been there for many, many years. So of chemistries do exist, but intelligence as users, as buyers, as specifiers, as structural engineers to know what we are putting in and why. And most important, one of the key denominating factors is to know the track record about
it. There are some questions. I think we can take it right now. There's some question like from Mr. Rajesh Prabhu, whether what precautions we have to take before using PU and polyurea, like about the moisture content in the surface. Secondly, what is the application whether the application can be done with brush and roller, or we have to use only spray applied machines, which is high costing. There's also one question by Shweta Gupta. Nowadays, a lot of hand applied polyurea waterproofing solutions are available. Can you throw some light on that?
Actually, hand applied, we just discussed that question.
Yeah, but
we just asked that question. So, Kunjan, I think we should take questions in the end, because a lot of questions are here with me, which will answer these questions automatically. Many of these questions will automatically. So, okay. So, what are the areas where as manufacturers, you suggest polyurea to be used? Let's say podium, roofs, bridge decks. Which are the area where polyurea will work better than a polyurethane coating? Or if Sunny feels that polyurethane coating will work better than a polyurea coating. So starting with Bhavan, what area do you think a polyurea coating should be used?
Thank you. See, in my earlier communications, I tried to break down these chemistries into three broader categories. One is pure polyurea, other is a hybrid polyurea, and third is polyurethanes. When it comes to civil engineering applications like roof decks, we want to do podiums, and then polyurea in that. The pure polyureas are high cross-linking. They have very high physical parameters, excellent toughness. And it is found that the kind of structures that we are building with crack bridging as a very key criteria to know how these will perform, because what happens is the roofs and these podiums, they go through cycles due to design moments, due to other elements in the environment, cracks. So the hybrid polyurea is said to be a great acceptance in because it gives you the flexibility of an polyurea, plus also the physical properties are available, which allows us to do a quick return to service, good impact, abrasion, and so on. So those are very good application areas for hybrid polyureas. Another could be, given the nature, it could be that in water structures, hybrid polyurea could be a very good way to look at it in terms of ETPs, STPs, and those water retaining structures, underground UGTs, large reservoirs, and so on. Then when it comes to polyurethanes, given their high elongation and a good recovery that they give as part of their process, they could find good applications in mostly above ground structures with a proper slope and as a performance built up in the structures. And when it comes to elements like bridge deck, we are one of the leading global manufacturers of bridge deck waterproofing systems worldwide, and also we are present in India. So we do recommend polyurethane-based systems as a vital component of bridge deck waterproofing build-up. So I gave you a perspective of good applications for hybrid polyureas, and then some of these applications where pure polyurethanes could be applied.
Sunny, what about polyurethanes for which areas?
I would say it's pretty much the same, because today also the polyurethanes can be formulated to reach very high toughness values or something. So like I said before, if it's a large roof, for example, you're looking at large podiums, you're looking at a large basement. So it's a little bit on the mode of application. For example, a proper polyurea would need like a 2-component hot spray applied machine. So unless you get that amount of area that you can go really quickly and coat, like, with everything prepared, then it makes sense to do that. If you're looking for hand applied systems or spray applied or normal spray applied systems, then for example, then polyurethanes would make much more sense. I think as far as the toughness goes for the roofs and all, I think even polyurethanes today easily cross that 4 MPa, 5 MPa tensile strength barriers with crack bridging values of whatever 2-3 mm and above. So for normal building structures and all, you can go with either based on as you see the need. So I would say it's not good to categorize it like, whether it's a polyurethane that's a solution or a polyurea it's a solution. I think we have to take a look at the properties of the coating itself, like whether what is the tensile strength, what is the what is the crack bridging ability, what is the say maybe water penetration under pressure, aging, those kind of properties if we look, and then if that particular material is right for it, this one, there is no universal product called polyurea or polyurethane. They're all designed for different kind of applications, and they're similar in chemistry, but you have to select the product based on what we are looking at.
So my next question is to Kunjan. Kunjan, you are an applicator, and what are the limitations you feel are there in polyurethanes as well as polyureas as of now? As an applicator, like what are the limitations of use?
See, for polyurea, we require a big surface area to make it possible. Whereas acrylics and polyurethanes, that also depends on the area. So finally, what is the area to be covered makes a difference in selecting the materials.
Okay.
Because the smaller the area, the cost also is going to be smaller. The clients are not going to give you big cost for that. So as in how the area is, the cost of the client, the selection happens on that. But yes, we have to educate the clients. We have to educate the specifiers that new materials are available and it can be done and it can give you better results.
Okay.
Large decks or large bridge decks or podiums make much more sense, or large terraces, like I said, with polyurea, because the areas themselves are big, and as far as the other ones go, then you can make the selection accordingly.
So this question is to all the panelists, and like, as most of these products, the raw materials are being imported as of now. And many companies are importing the complete product and relabeling it in India or under the same labels. So how can we extend the guarantee, and what kind of guarantees can be extended on these products? Because these have not been designed as per Indian climatic conditions.
Sandeepji, I would like to add one more question. One more thing is whether the company is ready to back the applicator with the guarantees.
Yeah.
Because that should also be a main important thing. If we are marketing their products, they should also be ready to give us a back-to-back guarantee on the materials which is supplied. And also maybe they should have somebody to monitor whether the application is done properly or not.
Yeah. So, Bhavan, Mr. Prasad. So, Mr. Prasad, please go ahead.
See, basically, I would like to address some of all the previous questions and this good question of we are talking about labeling of the product. As I have been in this industry last 30 years and observed that none of the core technology people have actually entered in the market with the right range of products from the beginning and created a history. All these histories were created in abroad for their climatic conditions, and we are trying to bring it in India. And if you look at all the polyurethane.
So your voice is, Mr. Prasad, your voice is not clear.
Yeah. Am I clear now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The polyurethanes bringing in India has not come with a good history of the technology bringing to the country, I would say. Most of the people try to bring one or two products and try as a specification different and implement it. Either it had a success or it didn't work. Actual technology, what is required for India, was not properly evaluated. Even till date, I have a suspect on that part that we are not looking at the conditions for our climatic conditions and for our application skills, what we have. Are we getting the right chemistry of the product? And secondly, while bringing the technology and we are getting specified in the larger DOQ actually. The limitations of the products are not properly understood by the sellers as well as the users. So what happens is, if you think that I'm giving it to the product a very good applicator who has got larger good experience and it will work, it may not be the right way to go about. Okay. Reason is, most of the polyurethanes currently which are brought to India have a lot of limitations on the product suitability for the application as well as for the climate. Most of them single component, which is more the vogue in the industry, actually are not suitable for every climatic condition and every application here. And one of the important things, other than the moisture curing of the polyurethane, is the thickness cannot be built more than 500 microns in one layer, whereas most of the specifications ask for 1.5 mm. By which, if we don't do the application with the right curing step-by-step process, there is a possibility of failure of the coating. And finally, all the people, all the stakeholders are questioned and, accountable for that. Basically, the polyurethane, there's a lot of, I would say the understanding of the actual polyurethane is not clear still, because many of the prefix and stuff used in front of hybrid polyurethane, modified polyurethane, pure polyurethane. Sometimes the normal polyurethane, which is the modified, is also wrote as pure. It's not confusing here. So I think that the chemistry has to be properly understood, what is required for the Indian market, and whatever, because none of them have still ventured into manufacturing in India in a bigger way, we depend upon the sources outside, could be the European countries or the China or Korea. So there, what happens is we have to define the properties, what we want, and we have to work on that for the Indian conditions, suitability, and see that the product is applied with a lot of application friendliness and done. For example, most of us may not be aware that there are polyurethane coatings which can be applied at any thickness in one day. There is a technology available, but we have not brought it in India. It's convenient. Okay, we wanted to just bring some product and say that this is the product, and that's why you see in most of the data sheets, there's a way of putting it. One guy says 1.2 kg, one guy says 1.4 kg, one says 1.8 kg. Everything is confused. So it's only the client who is suffering sometimes, and he's not understanding. He says you have to apply 1.5 kg because some other company has said it's 1.2 kg. So no one has the right idea about this. This technology still in India, I would say, pardon me if I have overstated certain things, but I would say that the core construction chemical people who have been in this industry for 3-4 decades have to drive this technology in a proper way, like how they have done with the other chemistries in India. That would give very confidence to the applicators as Single Assembly is going to get application guarantees. The guarantees will come when the core technologist has an idea about the product and has tested the product for the Indian conditions. Then everything will go for a good growth in this area of this. That's what I say.
So, Bhuvan, what do you think about how we can give and as an applicator, me, Vishal, and Kunjan, and others, how can we give guarantee for these products? Are these products manufactured by Tramco, by SS Buildchem, by Lagreens, and many other companies who manufacture these products, polyurethanes and polyureas? Can we give what kind of guarantees we can? Are these designed as per Indian conditions so that we can, without any fear and with full confidence, we can extend guarantees to the clients?
See, this is a very interesting point around life expectancy and commercial warranties, which is to be understood as engineers, all of us. a given chemistry, that is an hybrid polyurea, or could be a hot spray applied polyurethane, or could be a single component moisture curing or moisture triggered polyurethane, and how these will perform in that desired application. So one area, I mean, where Tremco has been very successful globally has been because we own our own formulas. I discussed this earlier, that we manufacture with those formulas in our own factories. So we know what we are shipping out with the raw materials and the quality checks that we are putting in. So that gives us the confidence to quote higher warranties. When it comes to applications of general one component moisture curing polyurethanes, and to give the understanding to the audience who is here now, with Tremco being available, there are coatings which are general purpose application polyurethane coatings, one component which can go up to 2.5, 3 mm in single coat. So and that too without a primer. So those all technologies are available at our disposal today in India and have been used across now projects in the country. So those all technologies are available. Typical life expectancies for these kind of systems could be in the range of 7 to 10 years. Warranties could be in the extent of 7 to 10 years, and life expectancy could be slightly more based on the conditions. When it comes to polyureas, they could get in the warranties in the term of 10 years plus at times, and the life expectancy could be slightly higher from that point of view. Now, the relationship between manufacturer, the specialist waterproofing contractor, and the end buyer of these services, how does that get formalized? So there are different models available in India today. Some of you know very well there are direct contracting happening where manufacturers are taking direct contracts. There are situations where tripartite agreements are being addressed to allay all these concerns about all the parties being equally responsible. And obviously there is an established old model in which the specialist contractor takes across the whole supply-apply warranty, which is a very prevalent model. How we support our applicators is, since we give them access to the technology know-how that we possess with a background of worked in Gulf countries, worked in Asian environments, so that they give a lot of comfort that these materials are going to be helping them solve problems rather than complicate their operations and situations. And yes, we do give warranties as companies. There is no problems at all. As far as Tremco is concerned, we are already doing quite a lot, large projects in India, where we are party to some of these warranty agreements. And we foresee the industry changing drastically in the next few years, where possibly we are talking something like what North America does, where you talk about 20, 25 years kind of warranties. I'm not talking of life expectancy warranties. And that kind of a landscape is emerging with the kind of capital and investment that is coming in. But then again, we have to realize that there are different structures with different visions and horizons being built. So there will be some structures which are happy to give and work in 10 years window and something. So we are flexible. I think many manufacturers in the industry are also in that path as we are today. So eventually we will go into a stage where we'll be talking of slightly more longer warranties and more expensive square meter costs backed with maybe insurance as well. Yeah.
Last night I was having a talk with Sunny, and in fact this question came from that talk after we discussed. What is the most important property critical to the specifier and end user? Is it water vapor diffusion? It's a high tensile and high elongation. Is it crack bridging? Is it compliance with ASTM-C 836, or it is adhesion with substrate? So what should be in the BOQs when we as applicators, sometimes we also write most of the time the applicators are writing the BOQs with help from the manufacturers and suppliers. So what should be the most important and critical from these? Yeah, like water absorption, I'll repeat, less water absorption, water vapor diffusion, high tensile and high elongation, crack bridging, compliances with ASTM-C 836, and adhesion with substrate. So question goes to Mr. Prasad.
Actually, most of the parameters, what is important, I would say, is two things for waterproofing. One is the coated film or membrane should have less water absorption. Very, very
Prasad, your volume is, there's a problem with the volume.
Yeah, have the volume. The very important thing would be the less water absorption of any membrane coating will help for actually giving the warranty one. More than elongation, I would count on the tensile strength of the product, which is more important when the structure has some deflections and loading, where the crack bridging is very, very important. So tensile strength and that are very, very critical. Elongation is just showing the muscle strength of the product by telling that, yes, I can do for 800,000. It has no much meaning because it's not a free membrane. You're going to use it and show that I have more elasticity. It's not a competition there. So if you look at all these things, the polyurea technology has got a lot of depth in giving whatever parameters you require. You wanted a tensile strength of 4, you wanted a tensile strength of 8, you wanted a tensile strength of 16. It can be given in polyurea. At the same time, in polyurethane, you cannot have that level of leverage of giving the high tensile or high strength product. Polyurethanes maximum maybe, the general polyurethanes which we normally use in India, the one component could be around 3 to 4. More specialized would be 5 to 6. And beyond that is something which they make called as polyurethane, but it's all hybrid version. So the important point here would be, I would count upon water absorption, and as per what my knowledge is, the polyurea can be designed for less than 0.5% absorption. Whereas if you go for polyurethane, it could be 1 or 2 or 3%, and actually are higher than that. So lesser absorption membranes are always good, and high tensile strength with good crack bridging are the primary things which they have to count upon for a good waterproofing system.
Bhavan, if you have anything to add on what Mr. Prasad has said.
If I were to write a specification, and if I'm a practicing engineer I put myself in that shoes, what I would really look at from any options of solutions that is available is crack bridging ability as vital, because where we have challenges when we are talking about concrete with cracks, and then there's a cover to the concrete. After that, it goes into the reinforcement, or else it actually percolates down into the other side of the structure and causes trouble. So crack bridging should be one of the very vital criteria we should have as an industry. We should really know. So today, slightly there is I have seen some areas there is a slight tilt or a kind of an affinity towards elongation as an area where we think good higher elongation translates into higher performance. So those are basically physical attributes of a product, elongation, tensile, and all. And crack bridging is actually a performance criteria. And you put the membrane to subject to cracking in as per these standards, and how many cycles of static and dynamic crackers can take. And that gives you a confidence on the system, how it will last. Second could be the thicknesses. And I have seen in I myself am a NACE qualified level 1 coating inspector. So very vital to use these coatings in the industry is on literage, and try to really come out of kilos. Because when we talk about DFTs, the simple thumb rule is a diaphragm thickness is equal to volume solids in volumes multiplied by WFT, which is the coverage in our lingo. Now, if we put it kilos, then we are incorporating specific gravities and some of the other elements, and the net delivered thickness is an area where sometimes we are not able to focus. So crack bridging, DFT, and adhesion, if we can address these three parameters, I'll repeat: crack bridging, dry film thickness, and adhesion to the substrate as the primary criteria one, and then obviously the tensile elongation and what Sir said, Prasad Sir said, the water absorption, and those are very vital parameters to look at. But if these three parameters are addressed, it will be good. Another pain area in our industry today is thicknesses, which is, as I was trying to indirectly indicate on the kilos and the literage was on the thicknesses. So that's an area we should really upgrade ourselves by explicitly putting DFTs as a way to address thicknesses rather than talking about kilo coverages, which is hardly really a reality, because when you spray, you have losses, so your coverage has no meaning. When you do your even roller application, there are a few percentage losses, so you don't have those thicknesses getting built in. And if there is not a 100% coating, then you actually have solvents coming out of it, so then you lose that thickness. So this is very vital that, as I said, crack bridging, DFT, and pull-off adhesion.
Thank you. So we are almost at the end of today's session. So one of my last questions is that which product finds more future in our market? Is it polyurethane plus acrylic hybrid, water-based, are they better than acrylics? Or hybrid polyurethanes, are they better than 1K polyurethanes? Or 2K hybrid polyurea better than 2K polyurethane? So when we compare among these products, so what do you think, where is the future in our market? So as an applicator, this question is especially from me as an applicator, that when we are writing specifications, what should we focus upon? Should we focus upon cementitious products? Should we focus more upon polyurethane? Yes, polyurea, maybe most of us, as we don't have equipments and we may not have that much bandwidth to buy that kind of equipment. Like Vishal loves doing polyurea. He's among the best in India. And I think the only one I know, at least in North India, who does polyurea extensively and who does not do cementitious coating at all. He doesn't do cementitious coating at all. So in fact, most of his cementitious coating jobs, they come to me. So, should we focus more on polyurethanes or 2K cementitious coating? This I'm asking to you, Prasad and Sunny, as manufacturers. It's not that what you would like most to sell. It is what you would like most of us to use as technology transfer, like the products which are coming out from you. So, Mr. Prasad, first.
If I would have to answer to satisfy for many aspects of the applicator, their capability, etc. A very good applicator who has got confidence on his workmanship and his skill set and the surface preparation, etc., can do good with any type of products you're giving him. Be it acrylics also, he can do wonders and will do 10 years there. Whereas, if you now we are talking about the future, where the application skills and the workmen cannot be much dependent upon, I still feel for some more time for the Indian style of working, two-component systems are better because they have their own self-curing properties, and whatever properties are defined can be achieved by having a two-component system. If you look at the manufacturing sensitiveness in polyurethanes are very, very high, and if it's not done, it can show up on at the end results in the product failure in the final application. Whereas if you do the same two-component polyurethane application at site by properly mixing, failure rate is very, very less relatively. The same thing, I think, polyurea is not a manufacturing high sensitive, it's the actual formulation which is the strength of the product. So if a good formulation with a history is given, polyurea can be applied, and you can close your eyes and uh, and give guarantees and essentially well. So I feel that the two component system
Please switch
for
off
some
your
more time is better. Though everyone asks, I want application friendly product. I don't want to make my people will have no. If that is the case, better not to attempt and lose out the business by doing rectifications, etc. I would be more comfortable in that way to go for high-end acrylic systems to be safer if the workmen and surface preparation is good.
Bhuvan, your three choices, 1, 2, 3, in brief. What would you like us to use? Polyurea, polyurethanes, and or cementitious, and not perspective of large projects, perspective of even people like me who do not do large projects. We do residencies and farmhousing and so on. So.
It has to be respecting the balancing between durability and affordability. And we are an emerging nation. We have to respect that. Some of these structures that we are referring to are not maybe those complex constructions where so many stresses could be applicable. So sometimes some of these in wet areas, cementitious polymer-based systems, two-component high elongation systems, which was discussed earlier by the panelists, are very good effective solutions to address. And if you go back to our experiences, I mean, some of us have been in this industry for a decade and two. We grew up doing those systems in many structures, and those still exist very well, performing to the criteria, because many of the components are there in waterproofing. One is to drain out the water. How effective is the drainage element of it? How is this the slope and the gradient and the kind of number of drains to the catchment area? So those all factors also make a very important way in which a waterproofing system works, bearing the membrane per se as a system. So it has to be a mix selected on the durability criteria of the project and the owner and the engineer involved. It has to be respecting the affordability criteria, and then it can be done. We do also cementitious, so I'm equally quite vocal about a good cementitious system equally working well in some of those applications within the building.
See, should I go ahead?
Sandeepji, unmute yourself. Sandeepji, you are on mute.
Sunny, last word from you.
Yeah, I think there are two aspects to this. One is the areas that we are looking at. Second is the sophistication of your application team itself. So if you are talking, if your application teams are not very sophisticated in terms of surface preparation, mixing, so in that case, it would be better to go with 2K systems, 2K cementitious based systems, because they're much more easier to handle in the long run, and mostly for small residences and all. That product mix, the mix of economy and performance is optimal. Now, if you're looking at bigger projects, say bigger basements or bigger roofs and things like that, you can go up one level in sophistication. So maybe some new generation acrylics are coming, which are almost matching PU in performance and in properties. Those are available today. Then of course your basic one component PUs are available. Then in case you're say anticipating traffic or more as the project gets more and more sophisticated, you need to scale up higher, and you need to also then invest in the machinery and so on. I mean, Sandeep, you know as well as I would say most people, means even talking about the polyurethane injection technologies, you can see that it has not come up that much because people still want the easier to use systems, like the complicated polyurethanes with 2K systems and all are not that easily accepted because most people can't process it. So it cannot be done with smaller equipments or teams who don't know what they're looking at. So it needs the more sophisticated the material, the more sophisticated is its application. Where you really have to take care of things like your moisture content, whether your surface roughness profiles are in place. You have to see whether the application temperatures, like polyurethanes and polyurethanes, are very sensitive to that. Like if your substrate is at maybe even 35, 36, 37 degrees, and you start spraying this, then suddenly you have bonding issues because the material sets much faster. So the more the sophistication, the more the care needs to be taken. So with that, I would say for most regular projects, I would say you can very confidently go in for 2K cementitious or basic acrylic systems. As the projects get bigger, you can start looking at technologies like 1K PU, 2K PU, and then finally you can end it at polyurea or something like that.
Yeah. Thank you. So slightly out of context, but when Sunny just said that injections, people still do not talk about and do not want to use polyurethanes. Most of the BOQs we get in Delhi, at least, while injection grouting, 99.9% of the, even if water is flowing out of a concrete wall, the specifier will always write, mix Sebex 100 and 1 bag of cement and apply with a handheld injection grouting machine using plastic packers, which you cut out of the conduit pipes. So people are not yet ready to move to next stage, and they do not want to leave the cement slurry. They love, that's why India loves cement so much. So thank you everyone. And now over to Kunjan. Kunjan is, I think, missing in action for some time. Anyway, today, like it was absolutely pleasure listening to Bhuvan and Mr. Prasad and Sunny. I think whenever I talk to Sunny for 40-45 minutes every alternate evening, we discuss so many things, and I have learned so much from Sunny, and still so much to learn from him. My talks with Mr. Prasad are always long, and we always discuss on so many things about the industry, forget about what I am using and what he's selling. And it's always pleasure listening to and talking to both of you. Over to Kunjan for, I think you need to invite, do the closure and.
Yeah, I would like to invite Mr. Musabar. Unfortunately, he's in hospital, so he can't be on the video. He will be saying his few words and final closure on this. Mr. Musabar.
Thank you, Mr. Kunjan, for the invitation. It's so pleasure to have such a nice conversation between very well experienced people. I have only a few words to share on the polyurea and the polyurethane.
Mr. Musabar, your voice is cracking.
Having worked in construction for quite some time, I could see the technology has evolved over a period of time. For example, if you want to do a bridge deck waterproofing now, or if you want to make a project like a sewage treatment plant, okay, it's better to consider like a polyureas, yeah? And as I could see, has made inroads into India as applying single component polyurethane coating time, it finds its own advantages of using it. For example, the single component is very handy, and it can complement some of the properties what a two component coating is apparently missing. For example, the user friendliness or a very good water absorption compared to the other technology. Going to polyurethanes and polyureas, I could see the polyureas are just the extension of polyurethanes. It finds various application in various industries, metallurgical industry, in mining industry, and so on. In the construction industry, again, it finds application waterproofing, joint sealants, floorings, and so on. Okay, it may not be the only solution, but it cannot be avoided in certain application. That's what I tend to think. As I said, like a bridge deck membrane, or in the sewage assistance is involved, high crack bridging is involved. I saw some nice discussion on the crack bridging. Just to add a little point on that, it's a combination of the thickness as well as the tensile strength and the flexibility. So the panelist is absolutely I'm with him. The crack bridging is very important when we are considering the tensile and elongation. To end up my part, I would say the polyurethanes and polyureas, we cannot avoid. It has to be there over a period of time. Like it start because of the user friendliness And it can do good job, especially on the water absorption and the strength of the material. When you get into the material science, the strength of the material wise, it's good. But it will take time. That's what I could foresee. Maybe earlier we had difficulties in the machinery part of it. That was a big challenge because machinery is one of the 4 pillars required for a good polyureas. But now the companies like Graco and many people came out with this nice machine. And in order to avoid the machine, people have come out with hybrid polyureas and with the extended pot life. And it does also a good job with aliphatic, aromatic, different chemistries. It's like a ocean, but I'm sure we will have good products in the future for all the applications. Thank you.
Kunjal sir, just if I can put one thing, I was just going through the chats. Actually, one last interesting question came up that is more on the correct selection. Means it's actually quite. I think that's the basic. I think one of the underlying problems that we are seeing is that how do we propose the selection to be made? Because neither the clients nor engineers are aware of chemistry. So should we be talking chemistry or should we be talking on the material properties? Things like say what kind of tensile strength does it need or what kind of crack bridging does it need? So I think that was I think one point which a lot of different questions are reflecting. So maybe if we can get inputs on that, and then we can probably close the session, right?
I would suggest that all of you panelists just go through the questions in the chat as well as in the question and answer sessions. And if you can answer question and answer box also, there are some few pointers to like Bhavin, they are asking some questions also. If you all can go through the questions and answers and answer them accordingly, that would be really good.
So there's one question from Kapil Thavre that why polyurethane? So why it is, what is recommended or why it is recommended? So who would like to answer? Sunny, can you answer it in brief?
I did not get that. Can you just say that again, please?
Why polyurethanes? Why should we use polyurethanes?
I don't know. There is no real. I don't see an answer to it. Like I would actually like to take it up also with the last thing that I put forward. As long as the coating meets your need. For example, you can talk to a structural engineer. For example, when he's designing slab. So you can ask him what kind of crack widths are expected on that one. So if your crack width, if your designer says okay, it's 0.3, so maybe you then select a coating which has got say a crack bridging ability of 1, with a factor of safety. Then if you need trafficability, then you select it accordingly. So a polyurethane can give you a lot of these properties, but then also think apart on the other side, the application sophistication, whether your team has got the expertise, the budget, and a lot of things. So waterproofing selection is it's not only whether it is polyurea or only whether it is acrylic or only that's actually a wrong way to approach a problem. It is like you go to a doctor and say I've got a waterproofing problem, polyurea laga do. So it is it's that kind of an approach without taking into account the technical aspects of it. And also, that is something it is there. So polyurea, of course, you can look at it at one point. If your teams are adept at using it, please do. They've got good crack bridging properties, good water resistant properties, and so on. The aliphatic ones also have got good UV resistance. So you can select polyureas, but you can also select polyurethanes. But at the same time, see if it's absolutely necessary and go with the properties. What is the what kind of thicknesses, like Bhavin sir said, what kind of thicknesses are needed, whether it is meeting a crack bridging criteria, whether it's meeting a weathering criteria if it's used on a roof, whether it's resistant to UV and UV rain, wetting, drying cycles, and so on. So those are the kind of aspects that you should take while selecting your coating.
So there's a question to Mr. Bhavan that is from Anand Kumar. That does Tremco manufacture PU or polyurethane in India, or they just import and do blending in their plant?
We do manufacture that, sir. And Mr. Anand can talk to me offline for any further information that they need. Yeah.
So Mr. Shashadri Srinivasaya he asked that that one of the panelists mentioned about high tensile strength of polyurea. How much strength needed on roof? So it is for maybe polyurethane as well as polyurea. We always talk about high tensile strength. So what is the right tensile strength and what is needed on the roof? So maybe Sunny, you can answer this question.
I don't know. See, as far as if you actually think about it in a certain way, maybe for a roof, you know, if it's a smaller building, a tensile strength of maybe even 3 to 4, or I would say even 2 is much more than enough, because you are not expecting your cracks to open up. So even a normal things would do. Now, as you're looking at, say, maybe looking steel structures or really large, very large kind of areas, or, you know, where there is a lot of expansion contraction, maybe it might go down to a few millimeters or so. Only in that case, you need the much higher tensile strengths to be able to bridge those kind of expansions and contraction. So also one important thing is there, which I don't think we talked about quite a lot. Lot of your elongation as well as tensile properties as well as crack bridging abilities are also a function of thickness. I think Mr. Bhavan just talked about DFTs and why they're important. So I think that is one thing which we should often think about. Like, for example, if you want a higher tensile strength, you go with a higher thickness. So it is not this one. So if you just consider that if somebody says, oh, you use 1 kg of something, it gives you a dry film thickness of 0.5. It is not, and your data sheet states test values that are tested at 2 mm thickness. You are definitely not going to get the performance out of it. So, you know, it is actually considering a lot of these things and not going blindly. I think we have to go back to our core engineering to be able to decide these things. Also, it's not a universal answer like, okay, if anything happens, you use a 1K polyurea. This happens, you use a 2K cementation. So I think somewhere as waterproofers, means I'm part of a lot of, you know, waterproofing groups. And what I see is anyone asks, okay, sir, I have a leakage problem. Directly, there are 15 answers below it. Oh, use the Ardex Endura so-and-so, use SS Buildchem so-and-so, use Tremco so-and-so, use Glagreen so-and-so. But that is not the point of the whole system. So you have to actually understand what the problem is and then select the material to solve that particular issue.
See, I have this question. I have this
just
question.
One line from my side.
Panelists. I have this question from all the panelists. Let's see, we have various types of specifications floating in the market, let's say for polyurethanes. There are different data sheets from Tremco, from SS Buildchem, from Chryso, from Fosroc. And in all the data sheets, the consumption is 1.5 kg to achieve a thickness of 1.5 mm, 1.8 kg to achieve a thickness of 1.5 mm, and up to 2 kg per square meter consumption to achieve a thickness of 1.5 to 1.8 mm. So why there are so much variation? And when as an applicator, when we approach the client, and a client gives us the specification that I want to use polyurethane 2 kg per square meter having thickness of this much. So how do we decide? I think this problem will be with most of the applicators, that how do we select the actual product? Is it based on just the thickness part because the client wants it, or some company's specifier got it specified? So how does it work?
Basically, I think one should attempt at the minimum thickness to be achieved is very, very important here. So how the minimum thickness depends upon, if you look at the polyurethane data sheet, if you have to study what he talks about is the volume of the solid and the specific gravity there. So some of the single component polyurethane have seen that they write even up to 94-95% of solid, and some of them start with 85 and up to 90. And if you look at the specific gravities, they vary between 1.25 to 1.3. So there is a lot of confusion in the whole thing. So exactly the manufacturer has to give what is the quantity to be applied for achieving 1 mm thickness or 1.2 mm is very, very important. It all depends upon the business. Okay. And one thing I want to add, because as all of us know that India is such a large country, and the rural market, even staying in cities, we are not fully equipped the knowledge with all the products and technologies. The rural markets are just talking about PU, I'm thinking that, are you having PU? I want to apply. I would say we should restrict them with slightly higher version of acrylic, say hybrid acrylic PUs is a better solution for handling in such areas, and they are equally good or better than acrylic definitely, and cost-wise also to be effective compared to going to polyurethanes and fail of not knowing the application. This is one more point. So we should try for acrylic polyurethane hybrid also as a system before we fully get geared up with the high-end.
So I have a question, very interesting question from Rajesh Prabhu. He says, my doubt is what precautions we have to take before using, this is the last question. So what precautions we have to take before using polyurethane or polyurea? And he says that he's talking about moisture content in the surface. And secondly, the application can be done with brush or roller, or we can use only spray applied machine. So he has two questions in this. One is, what are the precautions PU and polyurea application requires? Is it moisture content in surface? And how, can these products be polyurea can be used with spray, without spray applied equipment, like with rollers and brushes? So maybe Bhuvan, you can answer this.
Can I answer this question?
Who is answering the question?
I thought.
Go ahead, Sunny. You go ahead.
So the answer is actually yes, yes to, I would say, most of those things. The surface preparation is needed. So one is that depending on the coating thickness, your surface smoothness needs to be ground down. So you basically need to have that kind of the surface profile, which is apt for your coating. If you're going for a thicker 1 mm, 1.5 mm coating, then you need to go to that CSP 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that zone. If you are going for lower thicknesses, then you need to have that kind of a smoother surface profile. That is part one. Part two is your surfaces need to be absolutely clean. I would say, as far as you're doing polyurethanes or any resin-based systems, it is always better. Although there are technologies available, we say we can apply it on slightly damp surfaces, but it's always better to have dry or surfaces as dry as possible, especially for polyurethane. So anything below 5% or something is the most apt. Otherwise, it tends to cause bubbling either at an early age or maybe sometimes at a later age if the concrete below is not drying out. And what was the last part of the question? Surface preparation was there. The moisture content was there.
Can we apply polyurea without a spray equipment? Can we use brushes and rollers for it?
There are these new technologies like we discussed already. Like there are these hand applied polyurea systems as well. I think they come from a slightly different family, but the hand applied systems are possible today. They come both in 2K versions and as I've been made aware recently, they also come in 1K kind of system. So both options are there. But as far as possible, if you have the proper spray equipment, so you can do that because you get even coverages and so on. Sir, you're on mute, Sandeep.
So thank you, gentlemen. It was amazing. See, I learned so many things, new things as always, from Prasad, Sunny, and Bhavan. For the first time I am listening to here. So thank you, everyone. And Kunjan, now you have to do the closure, buddy. And before Kunjan switches on his mic, so friends, I'm doing a one-day training program in Shimla called Waterproofing Challenges in High Altitude for almost 50 to 60 leading architects from Himachal Pradesh in Shimla. If anyone is interested in attending it, please let me know. It's on 26th of November. Thank you.
Is this the same program we were discussing in the morning?
Yeah.
Or
Association of
are we having a separate?
This is my
part of that
program called Knowledge Series.
All right.
Sandeep ji, done?
Vote of thanks now.
Yeah. On behalf of WAI, I would like to thank, first of all, the CE and CR and Revert Media for offering us such a platform to have a monthly discussion or a webinar or meet such kind of things. Also, I would like to thank Bhaven, Sunny, Vishal, and Prasad for giving their views over here. And I would also like to thank the participants for taking their time out and participating in these discussions. And special thanks to Mr. Musabar, who, despite his personal problems, has agreed to give his views on this. Thank you, everyone. I think we should end the meeting over here.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhavan. Thank you, Mr. Prasad. Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Mr. Musabar.
Namaste.
Yes,
thank you, sir.
One has to thank Kunjan also. Thank you, Kunjan.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sandeep ji.
Bye.
See you soon.